Ave cohort, good morning. It is Saturday, which means that it is time for Pilum Teaches DCS. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be running a complete strike mission against a target. It's going to be in the evening hours, bleeding on into night. So there's going to be a few extra challenges there for us in terms of identifying our target and getting in to take care of the problem. But it is going to be kind of a combination of all of the different lessons that we have put into play thus far with our different lessons here with the F-15. And it's going to include, takeoff, rendezvous and refueling, navigation out to the point, talking about our tactics, employment of our weapons. And if we have to, we're going to end up defending ourselves from either SAMs or fighters or anything else in between. Doing a little bit of potentially some low-level work as we get in there and making use of the air-to-ground radar. I'm just going to get everything all loaded up here, and then we will flip the stream over, and we will begin with our usual walkthrough and briefing as far as what we're going to be doing in the specific today, and then proceed right on through with mission planning and getting that whole process started. And I'm waiting on the textures here to finish loading. And we'll get all of that flipped right on over so we can dive right onto it. It's going to be a minute while it's doing that, so we're just going to set everything else here up. Talk through all of that. I'm waiting on it to finish loading. There it goes. It's still loading some of the terrain features here, and as it does that, it'll fill in the map. But there's enough of it here while it's loading to show everything off. Hopefully this isn't going to last for too much longer in terms of these kind of delays, as we got a new video card on the way, which is going to give us the headroom that we need to run some of the things that DCS has grown into, as the card that we have been using is no longer sufficient to the task, and should really sharpen things up and make it look real pretty, which I'm looking forward to. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what we're doing and how. So we're going to be taking off here from Jalalabad. I'm using the Afghanistan map here today. And we're going to make a tanker rendezvous near waypoint 1. We have a transit point to waypoint 2. And an attack waypoint here at waypoint 3, where we have an insurgent camp that we're going to be eliminating. And some of the bigger things that we're looking at here with this is that the current outdoor temperature is 40 degrees C, even here at night, which makes this extremely hot. And adding on with that, the altitude for most of this area here, which, you don't have the contour lines yet because unfortunately, big map, high resolution textures taking a minute to get its act together. A lot of this is between 8,000 and 11,000 feet. There are parts of it towards the south that are between 2 and 5. Like the area in particular that we're looking at is about 6,000 feet. But overall, extremely high, extremely hot, which is going to play havoc even with the systems here in the F-15. So the first thing that I want to make sure that we do is we're going to change our helmet-mounted device and load our night vision equipment.
Copy. NVG installed.
You can see it's installed all of the different film strips. Let's go ahead and start our jet. And hopefully here very soon we'll be able to look up and see textures. I've started this aircraft up a few too many times, so we're just going to kind of roll through it here. While we wait on those textures to finish loading.
Low altitude, low altitude.
Back seat's all configured.
Chief, remove the wheel chocks. Copy. Wheel chocks are now removed.
It's actually taking it a phenomenally long time to do this while we are streaming at the same time. Just making things kind of awful here for us. Give me just a quick second. I'm going to restart the stream. So let me take care of that, and I'll be back very... Oh, nope, never mind. All right. Got textures loading in. Excellent. Need a few more of them, but should be popping in here very quickly now. All right, let's go and set up our combat jettison. First press will be our fuel tank, second press will be our stores. Let's go and configure our stores page. And then we will take our walk around the jet. For which we shall pause. All right, so we have ourselves our F-15E Strike Eagle. Today we're going up with a pair of 2,000-pound class JDAM bombs on the glove stations. We have an external fuel tank, and we have 12, 6 per side, Mark 82s. on board the jet. We've actually got map textures here. We can talk a little bit better detail and see some of these things. So again, we're going to be taking off from Jalalabad, and we're going to be cruising out here towards our tankers. And the reason for it is we're only going up with about 50% fuel. Now, we also had the external tank, which has transferred its fuel into the main tanks here for us, which still gives us about 15,000 pounds total, with 12,000 pounds internal. So it's the CFTs that are empty. And all I'm trying to do with that is to make the aircraft a little more light and a little more responsive for takeoff. It's not necessary. Like, I can still take this aircraft off, even being this high and hot, while we are here, but it is easier to do that a little lighter. And the reason why we're doing things like that and have to consider things like that is if the average altitude around here is between 8,000 and 10,000 feet, everything that we do gets bumped up by about that height. So if we're looking for a good cruise where we are relatively safe from IR missiles and ground fire, that kind of thing, instead of flying at about 25,000 feet, we kind of want to bump that up to about 30 or 35 if we can manage it. And we can't get that high without being a little bit lighter because we just don't have the performance under the wings. There's no air for the wings to grab, which makes it difficult. And the aircraft is going to be a lot more sluggish in how it handles and how it performs. And that kind of goes for just about everybody. You know, you'll notice that with your missiles. The missiles won't have quite the same reach as they usually do. Enemy aircraft, when they get into a dogfight, are not quite as maneuverable as they really could be, because everything here really kind of sucks in terms of good performance for aircraft and everything else. Being up this high, it is a little bit cooler than 40 degrees C, but it's still, you know, upwards of 25 in some places to 30 near the ground, and only a little bit cooler than that as you increase in altitude. So there is a lot to consider with all of that. We do have quite a bit of distance to fly. Afghanistan is a big, beautiful map. There's a 230 miles straight line from target to target. So my goal is to kind of hook up with the tanker, top off the fuel tanks because we're already airborne, so max takeoff weight is less of a concern. So we'll get our gas, and then we'll press onto our target and strike it and try and get out of there. Our target today is an insurgent camp that's in this town. There are no civilians known to be in this position. We can kind of just attack the place and get rid of it. And there's enough things down there that's more or less what we're going to do with the bombs that we have. If we have any spare bombs left over, we can attack one of these other objectives that are kind of near our rotary wing base here at Tarankot. And we have some limited protection. And at that time, we'll consider either landing at Kandahar or making the cruise all the way back home to Jalalabad. Either's a good option. They're both blue bases. Now, the setup for some of this one, just so that we're aware of our threat picture, and it's going to take kind of into account what our planning is Iran has invaded Afghanistan from the west, or from the east, rather, east of Iran, west of Afghanistan, and have taken over a lot of these bases here. So these are all red bases. And there is cap aircraft that are up on patrol, units that are kind of moving through. So we kind of got a mixture of dealing with insurgents in the area and having to deal with hostile Iranian presence that may come out and run sorties while we are out here trying to do our job. So if we see things like that, we may have to deal with it either by trying to evade it or by using our own onboard weapons to deal with the problem. So the first step we're going to talk about today, since it's a teaching lesson here, is our planning. What is our plan? Well, I know that I could probably fly 252 miles no problem without refueling if I was on full tanks. More importantly, I know that I could fly 500 miles, which is there and back again. And instead of being a Hobbit's holiday, that is our Strike Eagle's path. 500 miles back and forth, though, does not leave us a whole lot of room for loiter time. It doesn't leave us a whole lot of room for if I get jumped and have to get into a dogfight where I'm going to be dumping out a lot of fuel very quickly as I go full afterburner for extended periods of time. So the goal here is to go ahead and pick up, get gas, and then proceed. If all I was doing was coming out here to run this strike mission and come home, I could run out, hit my target, presumably dropping everything, and then as I come back, consider as I get to the tanker whether or not I need fuel, because from the tanker to the base is about 80 miles. So we still have a fair distance to go, even if all we're doing is going out and coming back. But instead of getting a full tank, we may only need a couple thousand pounds, just to, enough to get us back above a nice safe level that if we got to hold and pattern over Jalalabad for a minute, we can do that. The things that I tend to consider with this is, where is our target and what does the topography look like? And we can kind of see here that our target sits at about 5,700 feet, and we have a lot of mountainous regions there. And I will go ahead and use the different modes to kind of assess the situation and get a feel for what my target looks like before even getting up to go take off. So what we're looking at here as we go to the alt map, we can see some contour lines, and we talked about these in previous training missions and teaching lessons, that these contour lines represent sharp increases or changes in elevation. And in this case, we know that just by moving our cursor over it, that up here it's about 6,600 feet, and at the bottom of the hill of it, it's about 6,200 feet. So there's a 400-foot elevation change here in less than half a mile, or just over half a mile. Very steep cliff here. That gives us something that we can use. We know that there's a road base here. That's at about 6,000 feet, more or less the whole way through. And it is surrounded on both sides by high mountains. Little river basins that are kind of running through here, or dried river basins that are running through here. So all things to consider for our attack. So with this one though, we can tell that if we're going to do a pure toss bomb attack, if we can highlight our target ahead of time and get a little bit lower on the attack, we can probably come in east to west and pepper the area with some of the bombs. Now we're not carrying exclusively JDAMs. We are carrying some iron bombs here, which means those more or less have to be dropped in a straight line, which limits us either to northwest, southeast. I'm sorry, a northwest attack or a southeast attack over the top of the target if we want to try and maximize what we're doing here in the middle. So knowing that, once we get up to the area, I'm going to try and assess the situation, see where the targets actually are hiding, and try and plan to put our 2,000 pounders in places which are going to be a little more strategic, where there's larger clusters of targets, and then if we have to, we can run through the middle. Now we also know that this is only 2/10 of a nautical mile across, which we can do some quick math here on that and convert it. To feet, which is going to give us 0.2 nautical miles is approximately 1,200 feet. And that number is going to be important to us for one reason only. And that is when we set up our ripple pattern for our bombs, we want to make sure that we're covering the area here where the town is. So if I set a marker on one side of the town or the other and we fly a straight line through it, I want to make sure that I have the most amount of bombs going across that zone. And with only 1,200 feet to cover it, if I do a ripple pattern of 4 bombs, I can have a bomb exploding every 300 feet through town and effectively cover that zone. That's good because it means that we get maybe a couple of extra passes if the 2,000 pounders alone aren't enough to get rid of what's down there. If it is enough to get rid of what's down there, then I've got 12 bombs available where we can come up and look at the scouting area and try and take care of it, look at it so that the rotorcraft don't have to do it. That scouting area over there, or we can try and come over and participate with the battle for De Road, or however that's pronounced. I'm probably butchering it, and for that I apologize, but you know, I can always be corrected later. So that's broadly speaking our plan. We want to make sure that we've got enough gas to hang out over here to accomplish our mission and any secondary taskings we might be able to take care of. And then at that time, we can make our decision as to whether or not we're going all the way back, maybe connecting at the tanker for a quick couple £1,000, or if we are just going to go ahead and divert due to time to Kandahar. When we get to either of these bases, we are going to try and land. Let me see if they've got some ILS information. That one does not. I don't think Kandahar does either. Does not. All right, so we will be making a night approach on both of those bases without ILS needles, but we will work around that and kind of show off what we would do to deal with that situation. All right, well, that's enough talk about the planning phase and some of the tactics that we're going to utilize here. Some of the tactics that I'm going to use for the final approach on this one is really going to be dictated by what's down there and what's dealing with me. But my basic plan that I have for it is I want to set up somewhere around my other waypoint, which is out here, about 40 miles away, and image, if I can, our site with the radar. Try and mark what targets we can find, and then get a little lower so that we could be hopefully below search radar coverage and any airborne intercept radars. Make use of the hills and the terrain to push in towards our target area and throw our bombs on the target and get out without being detected for the final approach. We're detected out here in this region. Broadly, it's mostly ours. So I'm less worried about being spotted out that way. You know, because we got tankers that are up, we've got AWACS that are up. You know, there are a bunch of other aircraft out there that are doing their things. But, you know, in our case, when we go in to make the attack, I want to make sure that we are largely hidden from view and making use of the terrain so that we don't draw attention to ourselves when we are vulnerable on the attack run to other aircraft. All right, let's get back in the jet. Hit F1, I'm just waiting on it to roll over, and there we go. And we will unpause. Alignment's complete. We're going to turn on and test our nav flare system. We've already dialed in our video settings here, but they are this lower two knobs, brightness and contrast. And the goal again for it is to try and give us an augmented reality without completely greenwashing out our whole damn HUD. And the important thing to remember too, especially while we're here on the ground, is that our nav flare pod and its sensor sits about here. And its bore sight is more or less looking at like here. So it is going to be slightly right and slightly low compared to our pilot seating position, which means that for close-in targets like, you know, the immediate walls of our base here, you can see there the walls are up here and are slightly askew from their real position. Nothing wrong with that. That's normal. But it'll be more important as we are looking out at things miles away that those things are all aligned. You know, usually the ground crew does a really good job about bore sighting that pod ahead of time. And we'll take our parking brake off. Verify that our goggles are on on. We can adjust their gain here a little bit. And same thing, you can see the stripe is slightly high and left because the pod is slightly low and right. And we'll taxi onto the active here. Give ourselves all the runway in the world. Need it. Give ourselves a little spurt of high gain steering mode. And let's go ahead and take off runway 31. It is a little windy, so we're going to correct a little bit. Ooh, didn't mean to catapult off the ground like that. Nevertheless, we are up. Bring our power down a little bit. I'm going to let the plane fly itself for a minute while we go out to the map. Select our KC-135. They're on 11 X-ray and are on 253. I tend to make the names of these groups mimic what their TACAN and radio frequency are, just for ease of people being able to find out where they are and what they are. Here we go, TACAN beacon picked up. They're 60 miles away. I'm going to use COM 2, and since I'm going to communicate with the other AI aircraft, we're going to go ahead and go into man AM mode.
Texaco 1-1, in field 1. Request rejoin.
Two 253.
Texaco 1-1, in field 1. Request rejoin. In field 1, Texaco 1-1. Proceed to pre-contact at 17,000 at 350.
Okay, so he's doing about 350 knots indicated. At about 17,000 feet. Well, he's only about 45 miles away, which makes him one of those two blips there. Probably that one. Kind of see where that augmented reality a little bit kind of settles in over the zone. Figure out where the clouds are, where the ground terrain features are. Really one of the finest systems of its type in DCS. I'm just going to double check my controls here real quick, see if I have one. It's my boat switch. That's my slipway. Excellent. Remembered I had it bound, just couldn't remember where. Flying a little bit lighter has made things substantially easier in terms of our cruising abilities here. Visual on our tankers. Still trying to fly the intercept here with them. Get out in front of them. No, it looks like they are turning back the other direction. So we're catching them at the end of the tanker track. 6 miles away. I think that is the MPRS out in front of us we were looking at, and there's ours. .3 nautical miles. Pick the engines back up a little bit so we can actually close on him. Half a mile away as lights come on. £11,000. So we will definitely need some more. Slipway is open. It's doing about 350 knots, so we'll just slow down a little under it and try and find out where his groove is.
Ready, pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Okay, so with cleared contact up, he's now showing us his lights. And try and keep it to a gentle walking pace as we get closer. I think we're a little behind him. Bump up a little bit. There's the middle. And now he's turning. The other end of his tanker track. Too far forward. Once we can get hooked in with him, we should be a little more forgiving. We're going to get to that good initial position. And then it's just a matter of maintaining that position with the tanker. I think I'm going to hang out behind him for a minute while he completes his turn. And then we'll get cozy with him again. Yeah, I know, buddy.
Ready, pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Morning, Frost. Appreciate the resub. He should be, yeah, it looks like he's rolling out of his turn now. So we can do this a little less struggle bussy. And we slipped out.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
That's a good plug. Gonna maintain our position here. Which we didn't. We slipped out of it.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
He's doing like 348.5 is his average speed.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Which that's kind of the game with refueling, is that you will always be wiggling the throttle back and forth. As you try to maintain the same position.
Contact. Return free contact.
Sounds good, Frost. Appreciate the lurking.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Too fast. We are up to about where we were prior to the starting.
Return free contact. Abort rejoin.
So we will try and fly out our couple hundred miles in the interest of getting this mission done. And try to be a little more conservative with our fuel usage. And we'll make a decision as we're on the way back. We shouldn't need that external tank anymore. Just get rid of it. give ourselves some altitude here, and then we will probably fast forward a little bit. So we are in single player. We can do those sorts of things. Meantime, let's go ahead and set ourselves up for all of our various systems. Alright, so now we're kind of at our cruising altitude here, and we still got about 21 minutes to go until we're at release. Talk about some of the things that we do while we're cruising. So we know with 21 minutes to go towards our target, leave it in navigation mode here for a moment. We're heading to 3.A, which is an attack waypoint, and what that does for us just out the gate is it pre-configures, as soon as this waypoint is selected as a steer point, all of our sensors, pods, and systems, and bombs and all of that to be pre-configured for, I want to drop bombs here. So if you know where you're going in advance, like we are here with our strike, we know that we're going for this town. We don't know where specifically in the middle of this town, so we're going to refine our aim point as we get closer. But we know that that town is where we're going, and we have an attack waypoint set up for that. You can set those up in multiplayer using the multiplayer waypoint system, where you can pre-program a path. For the F-15, just like in the mission editor, you just have to name your target waypoints #T or #T. Or natural T, I guess, depending upon whether one is a musician, a zoomer, or somebody who had to use a telephone that was either a push or rotary device back in the 70s and 80s. Talk to all of the different groups at once. But if you name it that, it will tell the computer on board the jet that that's a waypoint that I want pre-configured as an attack waypoint. That's how you could set those up in the mission editor. if we were setting the waypoint up manually, we would create a steer point as normal, and then what we would do is just hit, you know, if it's waypoint 4, it'd be 4 decimal, and then hit STR, and it would turn steer point 4 to steer point 4 decimal. And that's all that needs to be done. So, you know, we didn't get as much fuel as what we wanted, but we did top the tanks off a little bit. We got 12,400 pounds, and we are consuming, I'm just going to go ahead and round up, 8,000 pounds per hour. So we've got just under 2 hours worth of fuel at our present rate of consumption, and we'll be at our target area there in about 18 minutes. Probably have about an hour and a half's worth of fuel, all things told, especially if we can consider a bingo level. And while we got all kinds of weapons and everything on board the jet, we're clipping along here at 322 knots indicated at 28,000 feet. Which, if we take a look at our ground speed, we're doing about 475 knots. So we're actually making some pretty decent time. We're getting closer to enemy territory though, so let's go ahead and turn our lights out. And darken the aircraft up. Sun is really settling out here in Afghanistan. This is going to do a few things for us. First, it's going to make any of the optically tracked systems, which, you know, our friends the insurgents, they don't have a whole lot in the way of radar-guided missiles. Or radar-guided gun platforms like Shokas. So if they do have those are still going to be a threat to us. But a lot of the infrared and optically tracked type systems and gun platforms and all that fun nonsense, they're going to have a lot harder time seeing us unless we give ourselves away. And there are several obvious or seemingly obvious ways that you can do that. First among them are any of the weapons that you fire that have motors on the backs of them, like missiles or rockets or things like that. The momentary impulse of the motor firing can provide enough light that somebody who's paying attention on the ground may be able to engage you. Your afterburners are a dead giveaway. So you want to try and be mindful of your power settings when you're coming in at night for maximum stealth. Also, there's your formation lights and your navigation lights. When you actually get ready for the attack, all of those should be off. If I was transiting with a wingman, I would probably leave my forms on. I might dim them a little bit and bring them back down to minimum levels. But this way, I stand out a little more if I've got, you know, Trigger who's trying to keep position next to my aircraft. Make it a little easier on him. It's about 14 minutes to go. Dark enough out here now that using the goggles is a pretty good thing. There's no moon here this evening. When I was building this mission and putting it together, because this is actually running on one of the multiplayer servers, as it's in beta format, I've called this one Game of Thirds in honor of the fact that it's kind of third Afghanistan now. The east and west all taken care of, but the north and south still remaining to be fully detailed out. But, you know, I'm kind of hoping that if they do a lot of the northern stuff, that they might get some of Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and, you know, maybe some of the Pakistani areas. And, you know, who knows, maybe even some of the bases here in Iran. A couple of the ones that are kind of a rollover from the Persian Gulf map. Those would be kind of fun to work with. You know, I don't know if this water is actually deep enough. It's actually an interesting question. I'm not going to see shit out here during the day or during the night like this. Maybe. Just barely pick it out on my screen. It's probably not translating very well to the video. But if there is this sizable little patch of water here, we can actually put some naval operations deep south on this map. And once southern Afghanistan is fleshed out and has actually got some things on it, now that can make for an interesting approach for the carrier boys to take off from the boat. I should say carrier boys and girls for Pantheon. Take off from the boat, push north, maybe have a tanker refuel here in Pakistan, and then, hitting targets here in southern Afghanistan. That might make for an interesting mission. Make them all kind of deep strikes, but, that's why there's respawns at other bases. Alright, so since we're at our cruise altitude here, let's go ahead and bump the time compression up a bit. Because there's another fairly obvious challenge. Sorry, I need a little bit of coffee there. There's another fairly obvious challenge to conducting these types of missions with the F-15 and utilizing the ground radar to try and search for, identify, and range your target from a distance. We've got folks out there watching. I'll give you a minute here. You can try and guess as to what that is. It should stand out fairly well. The answer is probably every bit as simple as you think it is. It's not super complex. That should be close enough for now. It's the terrain. The terrain's going to pose a problem. The radar in the jet relies upon line of sight between you and the target. The energy coming off that transmitter needs to be able to see what it is you're looking at and receive a reflection from it in order to, map the target in the ways that we've been mapping targets before in other maps. Afghanistan poses a unique challenge for the F-15 in that there's a lot of craggy terrain everywhere. So while it is possible to get an image, you really have to collect a narrow one and try and freeze frame it very quickly, because I can tell you this, just kind of looking at this terrain here at the moment, I'm going to offset here to the left and turn slightly south when we get closer to the target area, so I can try and image it. But this hill that's right here within a half mile of the zone could blank out a lot of this area. So if I'm going to get a clean image, it's going to be probably a short one on this angle somewhere. And I'm going to need to freeze that image in order to be able to work with it to set up either the JDAMs for attack or to have our initial point where we want to try and come in and drop iron bombs. So it's a unique place to fight in. It's certainly some of the most different flying in DCS that I've had in a very long time. But I kind of dig it. It's really forcing folks to fly and fight in certain directions and pathways, especially the rotors. Like a lot of the rotors, they were used to being down low, having plenty of headroom to go, it's going to take me a minute, but I can climb this mountain, get up and over it, and be on the back side of it in Syria and just attack this point from another side. I'll be 2-3 minutes later than I would like, but it's possible. Here, not so much. In fact, one of our folks, Femur, was coming out here to attack this southern town. And this little midpoint here is actually a pretty substantive stronghold, a lot of gun platforms and things like that. So what Femur attempted to do in the Kiowa was traverse this mountain range and got above the service ceiling for the Kiowa, burned the engine out while in ground effect, trying to get up over the top of the hill, and was not able to proceed any further. Now, since he was in ground effect, he just kind of flopped down on his skids and he was okay. But at that point, he was completely combat ineffective. All right, so when put our goggles down for a minute, looking at it with our targeting pod, we've got cloud cover, which is going to make some things interesting for us. I am going to go ahead and change AWACSs here to channel 268. And before I get into the zone and start really messing with stuff, I want to contact Wizard, which is our western AWACS, and ask for bogey dope.
1, in field, 1. Request bogey dope. In field 1, Wizard 1-1, Bra 273 for 150 at 25,000 knots.
Alright, so they're 150 miles away, which gives us some wiggle room. We got a break in the clouds, but not in the terrain. So I'm not really able to see anything of value yet with the targeting pod. And based on that information alone, if I were to come out here and say, let's map it, give it a little bit here to gather a picture. Alright, I did manage to actually grab a pretty decent one there. Like I can see parts of the town, but there's a lot of areas that are in deep shadow. See if we can grab another image here if that's going to be any better. And the answer is not really. Alright, well that's updating imagery. Nope. Boom, there we go, that's what I want. Alright, we're going to freeze it. And play with the contrast a little bit. Now it's hard to tell any sort of details about it other than this is the town. So let's just go ahead and pick a couple of spots for JDAMs. Again, we are fully aware from our mission and our intelligence that there are no civilians present in this zone. So I'm just going to try and pick both corners. And the JDAMs are ready. Kind of want to pick a good ingress point here. Alright, we're getting some better resolution out of the pod. Shoot, we're getting a lot of good resolution out of the pod. That looks like a patrol group out there. It looks like an important mission structure, so I'm going to redesignate our JDAM. That looks like a good cluster there. And I kind of want to come in there with my iron bombs. Actually, yeah, I think we're gonna try and come in south to north. We're about 14 miles away. Could make a high altitude pass for it. But I really kind of don't. So we're going to extend a little bit. Combination of our nav FLIR and our goggles. Try and push to kind of right about this position, really. Let's go and start turning around, and air-to-ground master mode is on. Normally, for maximum distance, I'd be all about pushing the throttles and riding the afterburner and everything else, but while I'll bump it up to military power, I kind of want to be off the afterburner if possible. Master arm is on. Get up and over this target, or this ridge line. It's our low hill that we were looking at earlier. And this is really where being able to program these JDAMs a little bit better to kind of get over the top of the target and then fall down would be useful. But we are just going to pop up and pickle both. I kind of want to see what that destruction looks like. And then we can set up again for our iron bombs in program 2. Bombs have about 20 seconds to impact. Give me plenty of time to continue maneuvering away and hopefully unmask the pod here. Observe the results. Okay, pretty good. And clearly we got some other vehicles and things that are scattered throughout the zone. We're going to pick a spot right about there. And remember what we said earlier, it's about 1,200 feet across. I'm going to set my interval for 300 and 4 bombs will come off, which should give me 1 bomb throughout each end of the zone. Now, these are dumb bombs, so it's important that we line ourselves up well prior to us conducting our attack. Temporarily mask the pod with parts of the jet as we come back around. And we're staying kind of low. Fuel state is 9.6. We got plenty of gas to keep pressing our attack here. You can kind of see that area as the spot that was on fire. It's kind of a bad day for them. Like, that patrol group will probably escape our wrath.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bravo 338 4200 at 30,000 knots.
Okay, they're still 200 miles away. Oh, that's good. It's still got plenty of time. All I'm doing now is trying to line this up in a big way.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bravo 324 4150 at 25,000 cold.
And be very careful about negative G's on the F-15, because if you go down too hard, too fast, you could starve the engines very quickly.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bravo 349 4200 at 25,000 cold.
Little pop-up. Bombs are away.
Wizard 1-1, Bravo 260 4160 at 30,000 knots.
This didn't quite do what I wanted them to do. That's alright, we'll get ourselves a little bit of altitude. Try and do like a high level drop rather than a toss. And there goes the 4. It's a little better. Now, while we still got some bombs on the aircraft, apparently we are not done yet. We haven't had the cheers of the kids here yet. We did manage to kill that patrol group. They are gone. But we do have, it looks like an IFV over here. So I'm actually going to go all the way down to just dropping singles now. As we are here trying to finish off targets. Looks like there might be a Land Rover or something kind of in the middle. Kind of see him struggle bussing about there. on, Pickle. Kaboom. Okay. Now those targets aren't dead yet.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Rob 329, Fort 180 at 25,000, cold.
Come back and reattack with a second bomb.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Rob 275, Fort 160 at 30,000 knots.
He's smoking though, we could see that. That probably finished him off. Not sure what's going on here with these, but they look like they might be... Oh, those are dead trucks. Kind of parked in a battery formation. That might have been an air defense group. At one point in time. Now we got a couple of vehicles here. Looks like BRDMs by the two sets of wheels. And vague roach shape. Trying to attack them quickly. Pickle. Three, two. Okay, there we have it. Now we still got one more bomb left. So while the main objective has been done, we'll sweep here real quick and see if there's anything else that may need a bomb. And that looks like an SA-13. I don't like that. He's badly damaged, but I don't want them fixing it at some future date. Especially as DCS is about to get save states for missions. So since he is not completely destroyed, and we got one bomb left, we'll go ahead and finish the job. Pickle. He is now extremely dead, and won't be shooting at anybody anytime soon. Now we have a choice to make. We're down to 7,500 pounds. And we are 43 minutes away from home. While we are substantially lighter, I believe the answer that we're going to have here is to go ahead and proceed to Kandahar. Let's go ahead and set up for that approach. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new steer point, which will be steer point 4 alpha. I'll plug in our coordinates here, 3129er 871. We use the lat long decimal minutes, so our easting is 065, as it's always 3 digits. 50 062. and at an altitude of 3,305 feet. And we're going to set up for steer point 4. Another 4 Alpha. Just 60 miles and 10 minutes away. We're fortunate this time that we didn't have any cap aircraft come out to investigate. But we're not out of the woods yet. Let's check in with Wizard again and see where the nearest threat is.
Request bogey dope. Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bra 270 for 130 at 25.
270 for 130 miles. That is substantially closer than a lot of what we've been dealing with. That puts him right about in here. That is somewhat east of Farah and a lot of the zones there. So rather than fly a fuel conservative route, we're going to fly a stealth route in the hopes of continuing to avoid that aircraft. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get our pod skewed forward. Put it back in snowplow. Put the air radar back in air-to-air mode.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bra 330 for 190 at 25,000 knots.
And cruise over the top of this mountain here. We're only about 6 minutes away. That's to our blessing. And our channel here is 75 X-ray. Let's go ahead and reset our TACAN for 75 X-ray. And we're just going to keep schmoving. And keep low. Now, just for our own horror, let's go ahead and ask the AWACS instead of a bogey dope, which is asking for our nearest contact. Let's ask for the picture.
Wizard 1-1, Enfield 1, request picture. Wizard 1-1, Enfield 1, request picture. Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, clean.
I don't think that's the case there, Wizard. In fact, I'm very certain that it isn't. They're just flying in such a way where you can't see them.
Wizard 1-1, Enfield 1, request bogey dope. Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bra 292 for 180 at 22,000 knots.
Okay, 180, so they are further away, which is good. I like that.
Enfield 1, Wizard 1-1, Bra 293 for 180
We'll actually go back and look at TAC view once we're done with this particular sortie, as we usually do for some of our training stuff. And we will give that a look. And maybe he'll actually give me a proper picture call now.
Wizard 1-1, in field 1, request picture. In field 1, Wizard 1-1, Rob 288, 140 at 17,000 knots.
Alright, either those aircraft are too far out for him to consider them a threat to me, oh, there it is. It just took him a minute to get to the point of developing the picture for me. Okay, so this gives us a good opportunity to pause for a moment and talk about what the hell that means. Because what he's doing is he's giving you a bullseye call as compared to a bra call, which matters. So generally, when you call in for bogey dope, what you get is bra, which is bearing, range, and altitude, and that is from your own aircraft. So if it tells you that it is, 270 for 60 miles, then, out here to the west, about 270, 60 miles away, so about here, give or take, is where that contact is at the moment that call is made. What they're doing instead is calling it based off bullseye, which is a common reference point. And in this case, our bulls is the middle of Kandahar. And that can be anywhere, but that's the reference. So 322 for 160 from bullseye is where his first group was called. Yeah, grab our compass rose here. And slap it right down on top of bulls. Very quickly look at 322. Change our scale here a little bit. For 160 miles, that first group is right about here. 316 for 160 miles, right about here. So there's a second group kind of close to the first. $301 for 170, a little further away. About here. 346 for 220. Right about here. North of this this other base, and then 330 for 250. Right about here. So, yeah, when you ask for a picture call, it's always going to be referenced on bulls because it's trying to give you the common reference point, and by the time they get through rolling through and telling you everything that's involved and who's playing and who's where, it's really going to be askew. It could be askew by several degrees depending upon how many groups are in play. So bulls is always the reference there for that. So that's just something to keep in mind. Many of the more modern aircraft have a reference for bullseye built into them somewhere. Some of the older ones do not, and you just kind of have to be cognizant of where that reference is. Generally, when I put my missions together and I'm in the mission editor for something like the F-14, I will use the fix point as the bullseye point and go from there. All right, so let's get back to it. We're 16 miles away. Go ahead and unpause and do a night landing here at Kandahar. It's a little turbulent at this altitude. Hot air rising, cold air descending, that kind of deal. Nine miles away. We should probably be within the range of the NASM system. So let's go ahead and turn on our lights. You can see the runway illumination there. And I'm just going to go ahead and queue up our pod to look at the runway. Now, coming in at night, generally it is not advisable to do things like an overhead brake or anything that kind of resembles the Navy's Case 1 recovery pattern. Typically, you want to fly in nice and straight, ILS approach if you can. And if you can't, try and give yourself some distance. You know, daytime, it's a lot easier to see everything that's going on around you. But at night, it's kind of a different beast. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is get down here to my my ADI, and we're going to use an ILST approach, or ILS TACAN, and we're going to encode approximate runway heading here, which should be just about 05, give or take. Looks like it might actually be like 552. We can see on the F-15's page there that we have our steer point, which is in blue. So it kind of pays to have this on an MPCD rather than an MPD. Our TACAN beacon is in green. It's down there. It's got the range marks and everything there for it. And we've got some steering points there on our HSI. That will tell us when we are aligned with the runway heading. We're about 15 miles out from the base. Generally, when we're doing this, again, we're wanting to try and be about 10 miles out, so it's a little closer than the boat. Welcome back, Frost. But if I was doing this in pure 0-0 type conditions, where I've got absolutely no visibility, as compared to having it with the targeting pod and with our night vision systems, because it's mostly clear skies down at this altitude. We will be using that to be our reference all the way in. So what we're going to notice as we get closer here is that this line, this vertical line on the top of this display, will get closer to the center. When it gets to the center, we are on our course heading that we've indicated. And we can see that mirrored on the HUD with these dots and this arrow. I'm going to put our landing light in landing mode. I know, I'm slow. I'm not sure why it didn't migrate over like it's supposed to, but if we were getting actual ILS information from the base, it would have, and we'd have our needles telling us how to fly. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get ourselves down to a good landing airspeed, verify our flaps are down, and we have 3 green, so all gear is down and locked. Now the little brightness that you're seeing there on the left-hand side of the HUD is from the nose wheel. Now, if I was flying this one and actually had all of the navigational cues working properly, as it does not appear that this is doing so, that needle would be roughly dead center, so that we could use it as our steering reference all the way down to the ground. Turbulence is still a little bit heavy. Picking the throttles up just a little bit. Reduce our sync rate some.
Low altitude. Low altitude.
Yeah, nice and gentle. Those gears settled out, our speed breaks out, we're full aft stick. Brakes applied. Those 3 little yellow paint dots that we passed by would normally be a like a midfield landing gear arresting system, which is what the hook on the F-15 and the 16 and the F-4 and everything else for the Air Force would have been used for in the event of brake failure or overrun. It's a lot more forgiving than the Navy's version. As Air Force jets are not meant to land that way. Turn off our nav flare. And we'll go for that shelter there up on our front left. Take a look at TAC view and see how well we did. I guess there's a little bit of shrub between us and there. All right, there we go.
Chief, place the wheel chocks.
Copy. Wheel chocks are now in place.
All right, let's go have a quick look at the TAC view. And we will review our flight. All right, so we're here, we're in TAC view, we're looking at things. And again, I'm just going to take a moment to always stress that reviewing flights after going through and doing all this stuff is really the best way, hands down, to help yourself improve. It's easy to make, I don't want to say excuses because that's not quite the right word, but shall we say enhanced judgment while one is flying the aircraft around on your own and just kind of looking around and doing at things. TAC view really shows you the honesty about what happened, and if you can look at what happened and truly assess that within yourself and go, okay, yeah, no, I made a pretty dumb mistake there, you can work to avoid that in the future and really kind of sharpen and refine your habits. TAC view is a free program that you can download. Just kind of Google TAC view and it should take you right to it. You can pay a little bit of money for some of the continued advanced features there for it, like the online briefing and debriefing modes, the ability to like record and monitor things that happen on SRS. So you can kind of listen to those as they happen here in TAC view as well. And so there's a lot of extra features that you can get for just a little bit of money, and it's a one-time fee. It's not like a monthly subscription or anything along those lines. And it's a very, very solid program, so I do encourage you supporting it and its continued evolution. It works with DCS, it works with Falcon BMS, it works with IL-2 Battle of Stalingrad, handful of different flight simulators, and all it's basically doing is taking telemetry information that the game is already providing, and as long as the multiplayer server is set up for it, or if you're doing things single player and have it set up for it, it will take that exported data and we'll put it here in a way that you can look at and see what's going on. And depending upon the game, you'll get all kinds of very valuable information. We're just going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit because we had some transition time. We took off from our base. We moved up to intercept our tankers. Found the MPRS first, and then we shuffled over to our tanker. We managed to get some fuel. Now, the F-15 doesn't actually export its telemetry data for fuel poundage or fuel flow per hour, but several other aircraft do. and it will record and display that information there for you, providing the aircraft does so. I know the F4 does it too, which is really kind of nice. So we picked up, we got to about 14,000 pounds of gas. We kicked off our external tank, and then we did our cruise at about 480 knots or so ground speed. Moving on over, getting into the zone. And this was our insurgent camp that we were attacking. And we can tell down here that there's several pieces of armor that are tucked in. The pair of BRDMs that we looked at and killed. And this was a ZU-23 gun pit that we were looking at before. And they do have a little insurgent group that's an SA-9, a pair of ZU-23s, and a BMP-2 out here on patrol. So as insurgents go, this is pretty hardcore. As DCS goes, this is not the hardest core thing that could possibly happen. And most of these units are kind of useless to the defense by virtue of attacking at night, which is one of the reasons why if you're looking to do like historical type missions or are just planning an extra challenge for your players, one of the things that I definitely recommend is not greatly enhancing or augmenting the unit count rather, and placing a bunch of stuff down here in the zone. That's one way to do it, but I would almost dare to call that one wrong. A better way is to present environmental challenges. Like, you've got this base. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in it. And during the daytime, this might be a little rough. So those SA-13s and everything else, you can see we've got, this little bubble they can shoot in. This is a display kind of their lethal range, what those little bubbles represent. We can turn that on and off to see what we're looking at. But during the daytime, this would be a little bit more formidable because all of these different infrared weapon sources could see you. And at night, if you're flying well and not riding on the afterburner with your lights on and everything else, you got nothing to look at. But flying at night presents other challenges in the form of limited visibility. Getting into a dogfight at night is rough on its best day. All right, so this was our first attack, and we came rolling through here. They have no line of sight to us. You can tell that by the dotted line between us and them. Pick the nose up slightly. Now they have line of sight to us. Kick the bombs off. And our first strike took out their ZU-23 defenders, their outpost, a lot of actually all of their man-pad infantry. All that was left was armor. Okay, so that's both of our JDAMs. And then we came by and we made a strike with Mark 82s. You can see all my head movements there as I'm looking around trying to study our way in. Came in real low. We did a pop-up and released 4. Which virtually eliminated this patrol group. But it looks like some of the after effects of those munitions kind of blew up the other bombs that were in the same group. So it was a little less effective than I would have liked it to be. Otherwise, it would have probably dropped the first one there, the second one about there, the third one about there, and the fourth one probably about here. And I said, okay, cool. We'll just come by and we'll drop another 4. Those were better spread out. But they attack dead targets, so there's nothing really for them to do. At this point, we started dropping singles. which that bomb hit close enough to damage the vehicles, but not enough to kill them. If I had dropped pairs, that might have done it, but that would have given us fewer impulses for what we were blowing up. That one went right through his hatch. He's very dead. BRDMs are dead. And at that point, I think it called it as mission complete because I have the complete conditions set up more for getting down to about 25%, mostly eliminating the site rather than having to track down every last little group. I tend to use that in the mission editor, especially when I've got a bunch of infantry that are attached to a zone. Because if, hypothetically, I were to run this fight, right, and we get in, we can see what's going on, and all these different vehicle clusters are eliminated. These infantry are very, very hard to see at night by anything other than a helicopter in close. And that can make it grueling to be sitting there trying to scan every last little pixel looking for what could possibly be left. When a mission trigger of like, no, they got down to the last 25%. Yeah, it's probably fine. All right, so we killed that SA-13. And we started cruising out. And that's when I had mentioned that we had targets that were under 130 miles to us. Because if we look out here, and we actually look at where the enemy and what the enemy has been doing this whole time, there are multiple cap groups kind of holding their territory. And a lot of what we've got for Iran are F-4s, a lot of F-4Es, and a lot of F-14s. Specifically the A models that we kind of sold to them in the 70s before the collapse of the Shah's government. But they've also got a very sizable force protecting all of their bases and interests. So it's definitely an interesting mission that has many layers to it. But in addition to these static cap units that are up, we also have other, yeah, here we go. Actually, this group spawned. So we attacked that point, and it's at some point I had mentioned that, there were two groups that were close together. It's these two. You have some F5s that were coming out to respond to things getting destroyed, and some F4s that were coming out to respond to things getting destroyed. Now, we are very far away from any of that. So unfortunately for them, we didn't hang out in the zone long enough to have to deal with them directly. But they were coming. All right, so we came out here and we looked at Kandahar. Ourselves sighted in for it. Touchdown. And we taxied off. And that was into mission for us. So what are some things that I would look at if I was trying to assess my performance here? Well, since this was a ground mission with no fighter contact for us, there were fighters present, but they didn't come bother us at all. And the first thing I would start looking at is, number one, did I get shot at a bunch? And the answer here is no. Again, it's nighttime. A lot of these weapon systems rely on being able to see your target. And I was flying in such a way that they couldn't. At least not very well. I tried to stay off the afterburner as much as possible. This is one of the few times where I wasn't kicking out a bunch of flares coming into an attack a zone like this, because the light from the flares might have alerted them to my presence. yeah, there's jet engine noise, but that's not something they can quite use to scan a target area in the sky and lock on with any degree of accuracy. The other thing that I did was, after dropping, I'm not loitering directly over the top of the target area. I'm kind of extending, putting more distance between me and the zone, and reassessing. And each time I was doing that, I was trying to stay at least 10, 12 miles out, which does two things for me. One, it makes sure that I don't fly over a bunch of other zones that might have other bad things that I can't see. And two, it keeps me far enough away from this zone for anything else that was down there. On the approach to this area, one of the things that we're still looking at and looking for is, are there SAM search radars up and looking for me here? Their radar is going to have the same problem that my radar does in terrain like this, in that without line of sight directly to the target, you're not going to be able to see it. Which, for those playing the home game, if you're flying the F-16 on such a map in Afghanistan and you're out here on a mission, it might be very difficult for you to find certain SAM sites because you just don't have the data for the HTS to see and identify them without flying at 30 or 40,000 feet, where you're looking down on everything. And that's really not the way to do business with something like that. It's probably a type of mission and a type of map that encourages more use of the weapon page rather than the HTS page for getting in and identifying particular SAMs to take them out in a hurry, because you won't have a whole lot of reaction time between peeking out over the top of the mountain, getting illuminated briefly by the search radar and going, oh, there's one, and taking the shot before ducking back behind cover, which presents its own flying challenges, which is kind of cool. DCS can be a super chill game if all you do is climb up high and pitch weapons from far outside of the reach of anything that could try and kill you. But that can be only so effective. So we got down low, and we broke line of sight with the area, which, is really good. We're out here about 20 miles away. We're well outside of the reach of anything that could hurt us. We've imaged the site. We've picked our targets. We've picked our approach path. And now we're going to execute that mission. Rather than flying directly over the top of it, straight line from where we were, we offset a little bit. We dive down low, or lower in this case, because everything here is high. Use the mountains and the terrain. Skimmed over the top of them. And got so close that we could just easily pitch up and with the briefest amount of exposure, throw our bombs off the jet, immediately turn away. Again, it's nighttime. We know they haven't seen us anything there. We're well outside of the reach of any of those kinds of systems, so we're not going to flare and give away our position. But we are going to go ahead and extend and get right back down behind this nice, tasty cover, and then kaboom. We're able to look over the shoulder and see the explosion happen. And again, we just offset, extend, start imaging the site again with our sensors. We pick a new target, angle in. We descend to a very balmy 7,000 feet. Cross into the lethal range of the SAM systems that are present. Bombs come off the wing. It's nighttime, they can't see me. I'm not riding the afterburner. I'm not giving them anything to look at. And before they have time to react, strike the target. Climb up and away. Already picked out our next target. Very quickly come back down on top of it. At this point, we have extremely high confidence that anything that's down there can't see us to shoot us, isn't going to see us to shoot us, as long as we don't fly like a numpty. But one of the critiques that I could put here is that I stayed very close to the zone after this bomb pass, when what I should have done was drop the bombs, climbed and maybe rolled out right, or climbed and stayed straight ahead and extended to reassess. We came back, we did a quick attack on it, so we didn't really extend for very far, only about 4 miles or so. But the one thing that I would caution anybody who's out here doing a lot of attacking type work is, until you are 100% certain that there is nothing down here that could kill you, fly as if it could. And that will keep you safe and in the fight for a longer period of time, and make you effective in what you're doing as compared to, what we're doing here. Because if this was daytime, the SA-9 and 13 that are still very much alive could have shot me anywhere in here. 13 is able to shoot from the front. The 19 is more a rear attack type platform. Again, it's nighttime. I'm not going to betray my position with them. If I would have started kicking out flares, they could have seen me to shoot me. This was a we know our zone, we know the environment, we know what's going on sort of moment. But yes, during the daytime, rolling through here with flares. And again, that's the critique. That was not a thing that was done correctly if this was a daytime attack on this zone. But we did finish it out really well. We got our mission complete. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, this was absolutely a nighttime flight, which does change things rather dramatically. Other things that you can do out here, because there are some platforms that we work with a lot that have daytime sensors only, but you can drop parachute flares to provide illumination over the zone, which can work both ways. If you're cruising through an area that is illuminated by the flare, and you are under the flare and therefore visible to what's on the ground, you can expect somebody to try and shoot you if they can see you. But if they can't see you, keep off the afterburner, keep your lights off. Pay attention to the radar threats, because that's going to be the big ones there that'll find you. But again, during the day you have to fly and fight that different. And if I flew this one like I did here during the daytime with no flares and anything else, there's several places here I would have at least been shot at, if not killed. Especially by that SA-13 system. Because again, that's one that has an all-aspect weapon, meaning it can shoot your aircraft from just about any angle, as compared to the SA-9, which uses some older seeker head technology on its missiles that is better in the rear aspect. It can still potentially shoot you from the front, especially in something like the F-4, where your engines are actually tilted downward a fair bit. So you do have a pretty broad infrared signature from the front. But for most aircraft, you are safer from the front than you are from the rear. All right, so that'll round out our Pilum Teaches DCS mission here for today. I hope it's been an enjoyable experience there for everybody who's come by to watch, or come by to see what's going on, or checking in later on with the YouTube video. But let's go ahead and round things out as we always do. Let's pull things back up here. So actually, I need to make a change here, as tomorrow begins daylight savings time, so all times are going to be in DST for this week. Here we go. So, Monday, we've got DCS Monday at 6 p.m. PDT, and Classic Games at roughly 9 p.m. It's going to be either a little bit more Crescent Hawk Inception playing Battletech, or we might move on to Ultima Underworld 2 and play some of that. Friday at the moment is still slated for Arma, which we should be getting back to. Might either be Arma or potentially IL-246. We'll see where the mood takes us there, but that's going to be at 6 p.m. on Friday. And then Saturday, a week from today, we'll be back for more Pilum Teaches DCS. We've done some night mission work here with the F-15. I think we might actually talk a little bit about like carrier operations, that kind of deal. And I'll have to do some refresher work for myself with the F-14 prior to taking it up again to wander around and apply some stuff there for it. See how that goes. So, with that, always ask for consent. Try to communicate as best you can with your partners. Try to be genuinely decent human beings. You can catch this and other VODs on the YouTube channel and at Pilum Romar. If you have a Amazon Prime subscription and you feel like you want to donate your subscription here, you do get a free Twitch subscription to a streamer of your choice because of it. I greatly appreciate it. It's not required, but it is helpful. And if you decide with your Twitch subscription that you'd like to try and arrange for some one-on-one training time, we can do that too. But that's a benefit for the subscribers there who do those kinds of things. With that, folks, enjoy the day, and we'll catch up with you later, and Pilum out.